You know, there's two reports both days of him falling asleep in court. Any reaction to that? Is he tired? Has he just been running around a lot? Or any thoughts on that?
If anything, he's probably brutally bored. I mean, it's painful. They make him sit there through jury selection. The first day was procedural. But no, you know, I've heard that report. It's unlikely. I know him. I sat through trial after trial with him. That never happens.
Well, so
President Trump is incredibly focused.
It might be the worst thing that could have happened to Trump as his Stormy Daniels criminal trial got underway. Not a bunch of devastating and embarrassing evidence of his plan to pay his mistress with campaign funds to keep quiet, but the reports of him falling asleep in court.
40 minutes ago, you wrote an observation that I was very surprised. Trump appears to be sleeping. His head keeps dropping down and his mouth goes slack. Tell us about that.
Well, Jake, he appeared to be asleep, and repeatedly his head would fall down. There have been other moments in other trials, like the E.G. Carroll trial, which was around the corner in January, where he appeared very still and seemed as if he might be sleeping, but then he would move. This time, he didn't pay attention to a note that his lawyer, Todd Blanche, passed him. His jaw kept falling on his chest, and his mouth kept going slack.
His eyes are closed. He is leaning to the left a little bit, quiet. His arms crossed as well. That's what we're getting from inside the courtroom. Lisa Rubin giving us some of those notes.
The reports came from multiple sources, not just Maggie Haberman, who Trump apparently scowled at for extended periods of time inside the courtroom over her retelling of the scene. And naturally, the jokes started flying on the internet, which might have hurt him more than the trial itself. Jojo from Jurors wrote, "Honestly, let him sleep. Wheel him into a fake Oval Office on the back nine of Trump National, tell him that he's president, hand him a Diet Coke and a hamburger, play a nature video, quietly close the door, and walk away." Of course, hashtag Sleepy Don. And even though his attorney could only speculate in her denials, others accepted that possibility and offered him some excuses.
What I would say is, first of all, he's old, and old men take naps. It was a long proceeding, and so that I would just say in his defense,
It was extremely routine and boring, so much so that, it's been reported that the former president fell asleep in court, which happens to people in court because it can be very boring in real life, right? There's a lot of waiting, there's a lot of downtime. So it just felt very ordinary, and it felt very much like every other case that is prosecuted in that building.
Let me ask you just about that. It's been described maybe as falling asleep also just, without knowing his REM state. He was seen with his eyes closed for significant periods of time, minutes at a time.
But this is really a long, boring process. And I think a lot of people are saying, yeah, I probably would have fallen asleep too. Now, they don't have an opponent that they're calling Sleepy Joe.
I don't know, somehow the defense that he's an old man and that old men take naps at random times in the middle of the day without even noticing it isn't doing him any favors. He's made a living off of characterizing Joe Biden as Sleepy Joe due to his slow-paced speaking and confusion in front of a microphone. Remember, he also dismantled Jeb Bush just by repeatedly calling him low energy, destroyed his entire career. So it'd be pretty pathetic to suddenly say, well, he's an old-ass man. You can't blame him for falling asleep in the middle of a trial, because based on his own attacks, many could wonder, will he also fall asleep during important intelligence briefings about the national security of the country? Just because it's kind of boring? So for them, it's best to just deny it, accept the ridicule, and get back to the standard Trump playbook of lying about other things to get MAGA cluelessly fired up.
Amazing things happened today. As you know, my son is graduating from high school, and it looks like the judge will not let me go to the graduation of my son, who's worked very, very hard. He's a great student. He's very proud of the fact that he did so well. And I was looking forward for years to have graduation with his mother and father there. And it looks like the judge isn't going to allow me to escape this scam. It's a scam trial. If you read all of the legal pundits, all of the legal scholars today, there's not one that I see that said this is a case that should be brought or tried. It's a scam. It's a political witch hunt. That I can't go to my son's graduation, or that I can't go to the United States Supreme Court, that I'm not in Georgia or Florida or North Carolina campaigning like I should be. It's perfect for the radical left Democrats. That's exactly what they want. This is about election interference. That's all it's about.
So now the vicious judge won't even allow Trump to attend Barron's high school graduation. You should feel bad for the guy. He's so broken up over it, he's promoting it on social media for some extra sympathy. Trump wrote, "Who will explain for me to my wonderful son, Barron, who is a great student at a fantastic school, that his dad will likely not be allowed to attend his graduation ceremony, something that we have been talking about for years, because a seriously conflicted and corrupt New York State judge wants me in criminal court on a bogus Biden case, which, according to virtually all legal scholars and pundits, has no merit and should never have been brought. This fake case is solely meant to attack crooked Joe Biden's political opponent, me, who is seriously leading him in the polls for purposes of election interference. His pain naturally led to him turning the Post into the same false political accusation about some coordination between Biden's administration and the tons of charges that he's facing. It was also naturally untrue to begin with, as multiple sources reported that the judge simply told him it all depends on whether or not they're on schedule with the trial. But despite the truth, Trump lackeys fulfilled their duties of taking the lie and running with it. Carrie Lake wrote, "I'm heartbroken for President Trump and Barron. All the hard work our kids put into graduating, and President Trump is being robbed of getting to experience his son's high school graduation ceremony. This corrupt judge is heartless and cruel. We the people will send a message in November to take our country back." Greg Gutfeld baked in an extra layer of lies while providing some strategy for Trump, too.
Piers Morgan made a really good point, which surprised me, that the judge in Trump's trial said he would arrest him if he goes to his son's high school graduation, Barron Trump's high school graduation. Trump wants to go to his son's graduation, and the judge says if he goes, he'll be arrested.
Yeah.
And Piers said he should go and get arrested. And that, I mean, you would win in a landslide.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah.
Now Trump will be arrested if he goes to his son's graduation. The rhetoric gets more amped up and more dramatic, simply to keep supporters frothing at the mouth over how unfair life is for Donald Trump, when none of it is true. And by the way, how many other people on criminal trial just get to tell the judge, this is unfair? How will I see my kid graduate if I'm in court? I get the feeling that most people in that position would get told to sit their asses down and deal with it. But according to Trump's people, judges just let everyone reschedule their trial over graduation ceremonies.
Based upon what happened yesterday, do you think Donald J. Trump will be able to get a fair trial?
No chance. There's no chance of a fair trial here. Remember, just because it's a jury doesn't mean that the judge can't sway them to go one way or another or make things difficult so that jury selection is impossible. That's what's happening yesterday. They spent the first few hours doing things that probably should have been done before a jury was waiting. That discourages jurors to want to sit on a panel. And then they come in and they're told that they can't get off from Passover if they observe it, and that you're going to have no break other than Wednesday in the middle of the week. So that messes up everybody's schedules, and people don't want to sit for that. That's why we saw half of the jurors say that they could not be impartial and want to walk.
Is it standard for judges to turn requests like that down, or do they make those sorts of accommodations usually?
No, accommodations are always made by judges. That's why you go over the schedule. If there wasn't such a rigid schedule, you wouldn't be doing that in practice.
It's just another lie. Mediaite reported that the judge actually told the courtroom that there will be no proceedings on any day or time that conflicts with religious observance of any sworn juror. Now, isn't MAGA tired of listening to their strong and powerful leader whine and complain about how unfair life is for him as more and more of his privilege and disdain for the law gets uncovered? This is your savior and your agent of retribution. The guy that has to make up new stories every day to convince his people that he's being mistreated at every step of the process. He's trying to get out of court and trying to delay proceedings by any means necessary, without realizing that his presence there is actually another standard aspect of our judicial system that favors the defendant.
Donald Trump is talking about his presence in the courtroom as if it's a burden to him, as if it's an imposition. The reason he is there is not because he's being inconvenienced. He's there because it's a right to be in court. It's a right guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment. And the reason it's compulsory is because American judicial precedent says this right is so precious that, except in the most extraordinary circumstances, it cannot be waived even by the right holder himself or herself. You must be there because it must be seen by all that you have had the opportunity to be confronted, to confront your accusers, to hear the charges in open court, to see that due process is done.